There are certain things in life I believe should have rules. Driving, operating heavy machinery, making coffee before 7 a.m. And apparently, genres. Because I don't know what the hell happened to book genres. There was a time when you could walk into a bookstore and say, I'd like a thriller. And somebody would point you towards the thrillers. Simple, beautiful, civilized. Now, you ask for a thriller, and the bookseller looks at you like you just requested emotional damage with a side of lavender. Now, do you want a psychological domestic thriller with romantic suspense elements, dark academia undertones, a morally grey heroine, and a touch of magical realism? I just wanted a murder. Why am I being asked to choose a lifestyle? This is where we need to talk about it, because genre bending has gone too far. Now, I'm not against genre bending. Honestly, I actually love it. A little romance in my thriller? Fantastic. A little fantasy in my romance? Give me the dragon. A little horror in my mystery? Ooh, abso-freaking-lutely. That's genre bending. That's tasteful. It's elegant. That's a little literary jazz. But somewhere along the way, authors stopped bending genres and started throwing them into a blender and then drinking the blender. You pick up a book and the description says, an unforgettable blend of romance, fantasy, mystery, horror, historical fiction, literary fiction, magical realism, and a coming-of-age story. Madam, that's not genre bending. That's genre tax fraud. And at that point, I don't need a synopsis. I need a spreadsheet. Let's imagine the author meeting. So what genre is the book? Romance. Great. But also fantasy. Okay. And horror. Interesting. Mystery. Sure. And a splash of historical fiction. Okay. And magical realism. Fine. And literary fiction. Right. Coming of age story. How old is this person? Because at some point, we're no longer writing a book. We're assembling the Avengers. Every genre gets a seat at the table. And nobody knows why they're there. 1. Dragon attack. Okay. Fantasy. I'm completely in. Chapter 2. Woman inherits a struggling bakery after her mother dies. Okay. Cozy fiction. I'm emotionally invested. Chapter 3. Someone gets murdered behind the bakery. Okay. Thriller. Chapter 4. Love triangle. Right. Romance. Okay. Chapter 5. We're suddenly in 1812. Where did the historical fiction come from? Nobody time traveled. The book suddenly just changed its mind. This is why I don't trust books with maps anymore. If there's a map in the front, I'm immediately suspicious, because that means I'm going to need to know where 7 kingdoms are, 3 political factions, 2 cursed forests, and 1 conveniently located inn. And I haven't even met the love interest yet. And then came Book Talk. Now, Book Talk didn't invent tropes, but Book Talk looked at tropes and said, well, what if we stopped describing the plot entirely? And honestly, respect, Because now you ask, what is this book about? And somebody says, oh, enemies to lovers. Okay, but what's the plot? Only one bed? That's not a plot. That's a furniture problem. Forced proximity. That's not a plot. That is public transit. Who did this to you? Hopefully the interior designer, because apparently there is still only one bed. I love how seriously we take tropes now. You can basically construct an entire book recommendation without mentioning a single event. Okay, so today we've got enemies to lovers, morally grey MMC, found family, touch her and die, only one bed. Oh, let's throw in some fake dating, the grumpy sunshine. Ooh, slow burn. Okay, how slow are we talking? Oh, incredibly so. How incredibly? Well, I'm currently 47% through, and they haven't even held hands yet. Madam, that's not a slow burn. That's a pilot light. Book Talk started inventing combinations that sounded like somebody spelled Scrabble tiles. Cozy fantasy, cozy horror, dark romance, light dark romance, dark cozy romance, romantic horror, paranormal romance, some romantasy, gothic romance, romantic dark academia. My head's gonna explode. I saw somebody describe a book as gothic cottage core feminist horror, and I thought, I don't even know what language you're speaking anymore. But I know that cover is going to have a woman in a long dress standing in a field. And there will be fog. Oh, there will be fog. And there will be a crow. And it's going to cost me about $30. Okay. Clearly, I have too many feelings about this. And rather than subject you to another 10 minutes of me yelling about genres, I decided to take the problem somewhere it belongs. To a fucking comedy stage. Because apparently, Litdulterous Whore isn't content with just being a podcast anymore. We've got the books, we've got the chaos, we've got all the questionable life choices. And now you've got Bookish Stand-Up. So this is a little preview of something new I'm adding to my channel. Bookish Stand-Up. And today's subject is something I think we're all victims of. Genre bending has gone too far. How are y'all? How are y'all? So, I picked up a book recently, and the author described it as genre bending. And I thought, oh, cool. A little romance mixed with some fantasy. That's reasonable. That's a genre bend. A gentle curve. A lane change. What I got was not a lane change. It's a book. Drove through a guardrail and straight into the lake. The description said, perfect for fans of romance, fantasy, horror, mystery, literary fiction, historical fiction, magical realism, and coming-of-age stories. This is not a genre. That is every aisle at Chapters. And at that point, you may as well just write, people who enjoy books may enjoy this book. I got 3 chapters in. Chapter 1, Dragon Attack. Chapter 2, Bakery Owner Dealing with Grief. Chapter 3, Murder Investigation. I thought, okay. Are we slaying dragons? Are we opening a cupcake shop? Or maybe we are solving a homicide? Because I only packed enough emotional energy for one of those. Then chapter 4 introduced the love triangle. Chapter 5 was somehow historical fiction. I don't even know how. And nobody had time traveled. The book just decided it was 1812 for a while. By chapter 6, I wasn't reading. I was conducting an investigation. I had sticky notes and beautiful flowchart and 3 working theories. FYI, none of them were correct. The worst part is when book people recommended these books. You ask, so, what's it about? And they answer like they're describing a dream. Oh my God, it was so good. Okay, what's it about? Well, it's kind of a cozy, dark, academia, fantasy thriller romance. No, just no. Those words cancel each other out. Cozy or thriller? Pick one! I cannot be terrified and comforted at the same time. That's called being a parent. Book Talk is making it worse. Book Talk has invented genres that don't even exist. Apparently now we have cozy fantasy, cozy horror, romantic horror, dark romance, light dark romance, dark cozy romance, cozy dark academia, fantasy romance, romantasy. Yeah, they're different. Paranormal romance, paranormal romantasy. At this point, people are just making sounds. I saw somebody describe a book as gothic cottagecore feminist horror. I don't know what that means, but I know it costs $28.99 in a hardcover. Then we started adding tropes, and now nobody tells you the plot anymore. It's just tropes. Everything's tropes. It's enemies to lovers. Okay, but what's the story? There's only one bit. That isn't a story. That's a furniture shortage. Close proximity. That's not a plot. That's public transport. Come on, be honest. Who did this to you? Hopefully a carpenter, because apparently there's still only one bet. Every book recommendation now sounds like a police report. There's a morally grey man. Okay, what did he do? Well, we don't know. Why not? He's mysterious. No. He's unemployed. Every romantasy man is either 500 years old or immortal. Ladies, at some point, that's not a boyfriend. That's a museum exhibit. And why are they always morally grey? Nobody wants a morally beige accountant. Nobody wants a man who files taxes on time and remembers recycling day. No. They want a winged shadow daddy who may or may not commit war crimes. The standards in fantasy are absolutely fascinating. If a man growled at me in Costco, I'd be calling security. If a fey prince growls at me in a book, Book Talk loses his mind. Now, Let's talk bookstores. Because bookstores don't know where anything belongs anymore. You walk in looking for one book. It's in fantasy. Also romance. Also general fiction. And somehow it's in the young adult section. I found one book displayed on 3 different tables. That book had more addresses than I do. Then you check Goodreads. The reviews are chaos. Review 1. Oh, beautiful romance. Review 2. There's almost no romance. Review 3. This is clearly a horror. Review 4. This changed my life. Review 5. I hated every second of it. 5 stars. Book readers are wild. The ending destroyed me. 5 stars. I cried for almost 3 days. 5 stars. The author personally ruined my emotional stability. 5 freaking stars. Now imagine that in any other hobby. This restaurant gave me food poisoning. 5 stars. I'll never be the same. And authors aren't helping. They're inventing new genres almost every week. Now we have romantasy. Horror romance. What the hell is that? Fantasy mystery. Mythological thrillers. What? Speculative literary fiction? I don't even know what that means. Climate fiction. Hope punk. Noble bright. Gaslamp fantasy. Dark academia. White academia. Solar punk. Cozy apocalypse. Cozy apocalypse. Think about that. Society has collapsed. The power grid is gone. Humanity is struggling to survive, but somebody is knitting. And somehow there's a cat, because there's just always a cat. Meanwhile, horror readers are just sitting in the corner. Horror readers, well, they're simple. We know exactly what we want. A haunted house. A creepy child. Oh, yeah. A bad decision or 2. Let's go! Don't get me wrong. Thriller readers are the same. We don't need genre bending. We just want one woman. A secret. A husband who definitely did something. You know he did. It's always the husband. By this point, I think authors should stop pretending. Just put the real warning on the cover. This book contains dragons, murder, kissing, trauma, magic, political intrigue. 3 maps, an emotional support wolf, a morally grey man, and approximately 17 genres. Then at least I'd know what I'm getting into. Because right now, my favourite genre isn't fantasy. It isn't thriller. It isn't horror. My favourite genre is opening a book and spending 300 pages trying to figure out what shelf it goes on. 5 stars. No notes. Still confused. Honestly, I stand by every fucking word, especially the furniture shortage. Because if I see one more book described as enemies to lovers, forced proximity, only one bed, I'm calling IKEA. Somebody needs to fix this. And speaking of morally grey men, can we talk about the men? Because apparently women no longer want men. We want problems. Not a boyfriend, a felony. Every romantasy man is described as morally grey. Ladies, what does that even mean? Because I feel like we're using morally grey rather generously. He murdered 6 people. Morally grey. He committed war crimes. Morally grey. He burnt down an entire village. Morally grey. He left me on red. Morally grey. But let a man remember your birthday and recycle properly, and suddenly we're acting like, oh my gosh, he's so boring. We don't want a man with a pension. We want a 6'5" shadow creature with wings, trauma, and inexplicable ability to growl. Why are they always ancient? 500 years old? 800 years old? Immortal? At some point, that's not a boyfriend. That's historical artifact. You don't need a relationship. You need museum insurance. And honestly, I do feel bad for bookstores, because where the hell are they supposed to put these books? Fantasy, romance, thriller, general fiction, young adult, historical. I've seen books displayed in several different sections. That book was well-traveled, even more so than I. You can pick it up from the fantasy table, put it down, walk 5 feet. There it is again in the romance section. You put it down again. You walk another 5 feet. It's in the thriller section. Literally convinced that the book's actually just following me around the store. Then you get home. You read it. You go to Goodreads. And this is where society completely collapses. The reviews are completely out to lunch. One person thought it was an amazing romance. Another complained that there wasn't any romance. Another one was like, hey, this is clearly a horror. Someone else. I hated it, but they gave it 5 stars. This person's like, it changed my life. Changed it from what? Be specific. Book readers are the only people who can experience catastrophic emotional trauma and respond absolutely incredible. I 5-starred it. I haven't slept in 5 days. 5 stars. I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed until I couldn't open my eyes anymore. 5 stars. This author personally destroyed my mental stability. 5 stars. Then they read another book by them immediately. Make it make sense. And here's the thing. I don't actually want genre purity, because some of my favorite books are absolute genre disasters. And I mean that in the most loving way. I don't mind a romance with thriller aspects. I don't mind horror with romantic aspects. I don't mind a fantasy book that's got political intrigue. I quite like supernatural elements in all genres. Give me the weird. I want the weird. The weird. If somebody asks, what genre is it? And I have to say, well, it kind of depends. I guess it was technically, I had this element of, oh, I guess that depends on whether you consider what? I've already lost the plot. Honestly, I think we need warning labels on books. I don't want to know it's a romance. Forget thriller. I want honesty. You should now be putting things on the cover like, this book contains murder, fake princes, one-bed trauma, political intrigue, a secret Baby, Marriage of Convenience, Morally Grey Man. It contains 5 maps. There is a list of how to say the characters' names in the back. 1 emotional support vampire. A woman who refuses to communicate. A man who refuses to communicate too. That this book basically contains 17 genres. Now that's the synopsis. At this point, I think we need to accept that genre doesn't really matter anymore, because basically every book is people with trauma making questionable decisions while being attracted to someone they absolutely should not trust. And that's every genre. Romance, tick. Thriller, tick. Horror, double ticks. Absolutely. Fantasy, stick some wings on them, tick. Historical, put them in a corset, tick. Dark academia, give them a library and unresolved psychological issues. Cozy mystery, just give them a bakery. Dark romance, he's obviously got a knife. Romantasy, he's obviously got a knife and wings. There, I've sold publishing. You're welcome. So maybe genre bending hasn't gone too far. Maybe. We've just become greedy. We don't want one genre. We want everything. We want the murder. We want some romance. We need the dragon. We want the morally grey man. We need the cottage. We also need the haunted house. And we want the found family. We want the betrayal. We need the spies. We want the map. I don't want the map, but some people want the map. We do want the cat. I want the cat. And honestly, I respect it, because I'm going to complain about genre bending for 20 minutes and then immediately buy the book. No one said I had logic. I bought the book because the cover had a dragon on it, and a brooding man, and a woman holding a sword. And then Book Talk said, trust me. I am nothing if not a victim of marketing. If you have enjoyed that little detour into my completely unqualified stand-up career, good, because Bookish Stand-Up is officially becoming a thing. I'm going to be taking all the ridiculous, chaotic, questionable shit we love about books and putting it on a comedy stage. So if you've ever looked at a book trope and thought, who decided this was normal? That's where we're going. If you've ever read a dark romance and thought, this man needs prison, not a redemption arc, that's where we're going. If you've ever finished a thriller and immediately gave it 5 stars despite now needing therapy, that's where we're going. Bookish Stand-Up. Because apparently I can't just read books anymore and sit and talk about it. I need to make fun of them while I stand up. And that's it for this week's Litdulterous Whore. Where the genres are questionable, the men are always morally grey, the beds apparently are in short supply, and the maps are suspicious. And our reading choices should probably be investigated. And remember, if somebody tells you their book is genre bending, bring snackies. We're going to be there a while. But until next time, read irresponsibly. Read something filthy. Read something weird. Read something that technically belongs in 6 different sections of your local bookstore. And most importantly, don't trust a man described as morally grey, unless he is fictional. Then, well, you know you were probably going to read it anyway. I hope you have the reading week you deserve, and I will catch you next week. Take care.